Yo, what is going on, guys? SMH Super Mario Hoops back with some more hoops, and today we're hopping right back into our top 50 list in NBA history. Now, who do we got today? It's none other than Steve Nash. Now, as for Steve Nash, where do I have him on my all-time rankings? As of today, I currently have Steve Nash ranked at number 36. But before we hop into Steve Nash, you guys know the drill. Be sure to like the video. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Be sure to leave a comment either during the video or at the end of the video about what you think about Steve Nash. And then also hit that notification bell so you'll get a notification every time that I upload a new video. But without further ado, let's hop right into Steve Nash. In terms of his career, he was an 8-time NBA All-Star in 2002, 2003, every year from 2005 to 2008, along with 2010 and 2012. He was 3 times on the All-NBA first team from 2005 to 2007, 2 times he made All-NBA second team in 2008 and 2010, and 2 times he made All-NBA third team in 2002 and 2003. In fact, he was even a 2-time MVP in 2005 and 2006. And you guys can check that video I made on my channel. I'll leave the link in the description about why I think Steve Nash actually deserved these MVPs. I can already see a lot of people disliking this video as a result, but be sure to watch that video before you dislike this video on me making that claim. He was also a 5-time assist leader in the NBA in 2005, 2006, 2007, along with 2010 and 2011. In fact, the only players to do so for more seasons than him were Bob Cousy, Oscar Robertson, and John Stockton. He's also a 4-time member of the 50-40-90 club, which says a lot about a player's efficiency. He did this in 2006, 2008, 2009, and 2010, and actually he was even 0.1% away from doing this in 2007, so he nearly did this for 5 consecutive years. The only other player to make this club multiple times in their career is Larry Bird with 2, and yet Nash still made it with 4. In fact, from his first All-Star season in Dallas in about 2002 until his last All-Star season with Phoenix in 2012, Nash averaged 16.5 points a game, 10 assists per game, over 3 rebounds per game, on 50% shooting from the field, 43% shooting from 3, and 91% shooting from the free throw line. And in fact, he is the only player in NBA history for 10 consecutive years to average both a double-double on 50-40-90 splits, which is likely a fun fact stat that will never be replicated again in NBA history. In terms of the playoffs, it's safe to say that Nash elevated his game. I mean, while his true shooting percentage and win share per 48 rating both took a little bit of a minor dip, his points per game, his rebounds per game, his assists per game, and his box plus minus all increased, along with his PER still staying relatively the same. And from those years with Dallas and Phoenix, he averaged over his regular season average for points per game in 17 of 20 series, higher than his regular season average in 13 of 20 series for assists per game, and higher than his regular season average for rebounds per game in 16 of 20 series, along with multiple 50-40-90 split series. Over this stretch, he averaged over 10 assists per game in 8 series and 20 points per game in 7 series, including arguably his best series in revenge fashion against the Dallas Mavericks his first year after leaving them to go back to Phoenix. Nash in this series averaged 30 points per game, 12 assists, 6.5 rebounds on 55% from the field, 42% from 3, and 96% from the free throw line to lead his new Suns to a 4-2 series win over those old Mavericks. Over the fourth quarters and the Game 6 overtime, Nash averaged 8.2 points per game, 3 assists per game on 63% shooting from the field, and a +6 plus-minus for each of those games, including 8 points on 3 of 3 shooting from the field and 2 of 2 shooting from the three-point line to force overtime and ultimately win this game. But those 8 points on that efficiency all happened in the last minute of the fourth quarter of that game. In his career, Nash made 4 Western Conference Finals appearances in what is heavily regarded as the toughest conference in NBA history. And every year with the Suns, he would elevate his game. The 2003 series with Dallas, he was still efficient and averaged about 15, 6, and 3. The main difference was that Dirk was suffering a knee injury and ended up missing half the series against the Spurs. Before the injury, Dirk was leading the team with 25 points a game and 11 rebounds a game, and was the only person to match Tim Duncan's production for San Antonio in those games as well. If he stays healthy, they likely make this a better series and maybe even win, which many believe that if Dallas won this series, they probably would have been NBA champions over the New Jersey Nets, led by Jason Kidd. In the 2005 Conference Finals against the Spurs, Nash still put up 23, 11, and 4 on 58% true shooting and played a great role in Amari Stoudemire averaging 37 points per game in this series as well. And in every fourth quarter except for the last one, everyone, Nash was the best player on the court. And keep in mind, this is after going down 3-0 and being in a position where no team had ever come back from. In 2006, he led the Suns to the Western Conference Finals without Amari Stoudemire, and in a season following the summer where they lost over 60 points per game in terms of roster changes, including losing guys like Quentin Richardson and Joe Johnson as well. As a result, Nash would win his second MVP in this year, but in this series, Nash averaged about 21 points per game, 10 assists per game, 3 rebounds per game on 52, 44, 96 splits, making this the second consecutive year where he dropped 50, 40, 90 splits on his old Dallas Mavericks team. And in this series, Boris Diaw averaged 24 points per game, which was by far the best of his career. In fact, all 3 of Boris Diaw's playoff series in this postseason were the best of his career while starting in the absence of Amari Stoudemire, which again, you can add a large credit to Steve Nash for being so. And in 2010, this was his last chance to pull off a title where ultimately they faced just a better team in the Lakers. And this was quite arguably Kobe Bryant's best playoff series of his career. And I know we'll get into Kobe later on, but if you're Steve Nash, I guess there's no shame losing to a guy like Kobe Bryant. After all, he did get to beat Kobe when he didn't have really much help around him. So I guess it's only fair that Kobe got his revenge when he got a little more assistance. Other than Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire, the team had started to become decimated with their depth chart, lacking a lot more than before with a 37-year-old Grant Hill starting, a Jason Richardson who was past his prime. Both those guys were kind of the next best options. In terms of MVP shares, he received votes on 8 different seasons. 6 times he was a top 10 finisher, and 1 time he was even the runner-up in 2006-2007, which a lot of people kind of sleep on this season for Steve Nash just because he didn't win the MVP. That year it actually went to Dirk Nowitzki, but if he won this year, he would have been a three-peat on MVPs, something that we hadn't seen since Larry Bird in the mid-'80s. And then, of course, he is a 2-time winner. In terms of all-time stats and where he ranks, his 10,335 assists puts him 3rd all-time, 8.5 assists per game puts him 10th all-time, 129.7 win shares marks him 41st all-time, 113.7 offensive win shares puts him 17th in NBA history, 118.2 offensive rating puts him top 21 all-time, a 48.2 VORP rating, good for 37th in NBA history, a 4.4 offensive box plus minus puts him 20th all-time, and in terms of shooting splits, 90.4% from the free throw line is 2nd best in NBA history, 42.8% from the three-point line is 11th best in NBA history, and a 60.5% true shooting percentage, good for 21st of all time. And again, he led one of the most elite offensive teams in NBA history and could do kind of everything you asked for on that end. Nash has even said himself that in today's era, he would likely shift his style of play to being a more aggressive scorer, which would likely make for more eye-popping stat lines given his efficiency. So when recapping Steve Nash and his career, I would still say that he is probably underrated. He's probably a top 5 offensive player in NBA history because not only was he a great passer, but he was also a great playmaker. He was great off the ball. He was very efficient. And when his team needed it to do it in the playoffs, he became an elite scorer and was pretty clutch. He probably falls between top 5, top 10 in terms of all-time shooters and arguably the most efficient player ever, but I think he's at least top 5 in that category as well. He's a top 5 passer ever, and I know there's a lot of great passers in NBA history, but personally, I think he's the greatest passer ever because I've never seen players throw the passes that he would throw back in the day. I think his time in Dallas kind of proves that he wasn't a system player either, which I've seen a lot of people say. He was a multiple-time All-Star, multiple-time All-NBA player with the Mavericks. He also just got a little bit unlucky. The one year when they were playing the Spurs and then they had suspensions, the Suns had home court advantage that series, and losing Amari Stoudemire and Boris Diaw really hurt, especially since they lost the next game where they were suspended by only 3 points. And the Spurs won the championship that year. So again, they very well could have won the title. I think they definitely would have beat the Cavs, who pretty much were led by a young LeBron and a few solid other role players, which is one of the most controversial suspensions in NBA history and arguably cost him a ring. So it's kind of dumb that if he doesn't have a ring to hold that against him, because once again, I've said this before, there's a lot of players on this list that have 0 rings. And then people also give him slack because, their favorite players play on the Nets, whether it's KD, Kyrie, or Harden, and they got to blame someone, and usually they always blame the coach first before anybody else, even if Steve Nash is doing a great job. And I'm not going to sit here and say he's the best coach in the league or even like a top 5 coach in the league but I think he's done a pretty good job so far. I mean, like people have said, he had the hardest job in sports last year. Yeah, the talent is overwhelming, but not everybody can manage all those egos and manage the playing time and accord the lineups properly, so you got to think about it that way as well. I know people love to give Curry credit for his offensive capabilities, but Nash could essentially succeed in every angle, along with his ability to be one of the most willing passers and best creators for his teammates as well, and the fact that I think over the course of his playoff resume in comparison to Curry's, he probably has shown it down the stretch of games in the clutch moments a little bit more. Now, even though Nash's scoring output would likely rise in today's era, it probably wouldn't be quite as high as guards like Dame or Curry or Trae Young, but I think he could have multiple seasons, maybe around 24 to 26 points per game, while still having multiple 10 assists per game seasons as well, where he would lead the league. And also his efficiency, I mean, even in this era where the defensive rules were toggled on multiple seasons, he managed to be a top 20 finisher in field goal percentage on 4 different occasions over a decade, which is insane for a guard in the three-point era. Now just imagine that today, where the defenses seem to be less and less of an emphasis. Overall though, Steve Nash deserves more credit. I think he's a top 5 point guard of all time, and not enough people put him in that class, which doesn't quite sit well with me either. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think about Steve Nash. I know this video is probably applying a lot. I think of all the ones that I've made so far for my top 50 list, either this one or the Chris Paul video probably included the most information. So maybe if you were confused by something in the course of the video, you could leave a comment, ask me a question. I'll feel free to answer it. Feel free to check out that video that I put in the description. But again, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I think that's going to do it for me. So I'm out. Peace.